cool. How's everything going?
I don't even know what day it is half the time, but we're almost done for today, so it's good.
So what are you doing? Are you talking about appointments, moving appointments and stuff like that? What are you involved in over there?
I'm helping people find jobs. I work for the Oklahoma Army National Guard, so I'm a
Oh,
recruiter for them.
very cool. Very cool. So you said helping people find jobs. Is this just like military only or just anybody?
No, it's for military service. We specialize in part-time military service, so once a month, all that stuff.
Gotcha. Is that so that's what you do full time?
Yeah, I work for them full time, helping people find jobs part time. So they go respond to tornadoes, hurricanes, natural disasters.
Gotcha. Cool. I mean, that's a interesting, work to be in. Were you like deployed and things like that, or you just work in the office?
I'm in the office working full time. Yeah, I've been deployed on state active duty missions.
Hmm.
We responded to Hurricane Harvey a couple years
Oh,
ago.
okay.
Um, there are options to be deployed overseas if
Hmm.
you can volunteer for those deployments as well, or if your
Gotcha.
unit gets called up to go overseas and do that. So all
Interesting.
kinds of stuff you can do.
Interesting. Yeah, sorry about the confusion yesterday. I know you were like, I'm
What
ready. I can't.
is it?
What's going on? I was like, I know she had to move everything around, but I appreciate you taking the time out today to, get on with me. So recently you said you were involved in some powerlifting. How did that go?
It was cool. I did my first meet ever October 3rd, and I went in there and kind of won it. So that was fun. And I
Kind
broke,
of won it, or
yeah, yeah, I won like my weight class, I guess. I don't know. I'm
uh,
still learning all the rules, but so I won that, and I broke a couple state records in the deadlift. So I'm pretty happy.
that's pretty cool because originally you compete in bodybuilding, right? Like that's your kind of gig.
Yeah, I kind of been all over the place. I did some of those crazy mud runs, and I guess they have a nationals for that. I qualified for that, but I never went. And then I moved
Hmm.
into bodybuilding, and then COVID was weird, so I figured powerlifting would be the least likely thing to get canceled.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
you know, from talking with everybody in Oklahoma, they haven't really canceled any powerlifting meets, so it's just been easier to just stay ready for that.
Gotcha. How did so on these powerlifting meets, are they like doing any kind of like distancing or anything like that, or it's just a free for all?
I think you were supposed to, but like, I mean, the gyms are so small. Like the gyms are so small that we're pretty much. Am I allowed to cuss on here? Like, I need to know.
I prefer not, but
I'm just kidding. But yeah. Anyway, so it's so packed in there that you really couldn't establish like the 6 foot distance. Some of you tried to, but
Mhm.
there just wasn't the room.
Right.
And there were some people wearing masks. Some people didn't. Some people only happened to wear masks when they went up there to do their lift, and then
Hmm.
they would take the mask off. So that tells you what you need to know about that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's useless then, right? Like, I mean, if you're gonna do that, then might as well not even wear it.
I believe some people just make some things look pretty for the camera.
Sure, sure. There's a lot of that, right? Like, there's a lot of that just to make people think that you're doing something. So yeah. So how did you just get into like fitness and training in general? Like, were you always into it, or your parents into it? Like, when did that happen?
Most of my family is pretty fit. We all serve in the military or law
Hmm.
enforcement capacities or both. So I guess I kind of grew up with it. I remember being a little kid, my brother come back from basic training and he had me out there running 3 miles with him.
Hmm.
So every time I got in trouble, they made me do push-ups, like stuff like that. So I guess I started out kind of working out when I was a little kid.
Hmm.
And then of course just high school sports. I tried almost every sport that I had access to, and I just kind of kept up with it. Is what I tell people is I just never stopped.
Hmm.
And just
So,
throughout the years, just different events have came up, and I've just tried them.
hmm so you were just like, well, if something comes up and something new and interesting, you just give it a go.
A lot of times, it's kind of like the double dare thing. Like, you won't do that, and I'm like, well, let's see, and then I just try it, and I'm usually pretty successful at it, if I put my mind to it.
Yeah, yeah. So how did you get into like bodybuilding? Now, which division do you compete in? Let's start there.
The judges' remarks were to move up to physique the last couple years at nationals. I
Mm-hmm.
guess I'm starting to grow a lot, and so I guess if I were to come back to it, I would probably compete in both.
Mm-hmm.
I would try to go for both just to see.
For figure and
But
physique. I'm having a little. You're breaking up a little
primarily
bit.
is figure. Yeah, that's. Let me get out the window. Is that better?
Yeah, a little better. Yeah, I think so.
Okay, internet's not bad.
Yeah. Yeah. So you said if you come back, is there like a chance that you won't? Are you thinking about not coming back?
No, I fully intend on coming back. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I believe all the national shows are done for the year. Miami was just this past weekend, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So going forward, I would have to requalify at a state show again.
Yeah.
And then go to nationals next year.
So how would that work if you're going to try to compete in both divisions? Would you have to requalify in both divisions or just one, and then nationals just do both?
I believe unless they've changed the rules, you can do, if you get an NQ in any class, you can compete in any class once you go to nationals, as long as you pay the entry.
Gotcha.
So you can compete in almost any class you want to if you pay the entry fees for it. So
Yeah. Well, if you're that tweener like area, that would be awesome because then you could get double the chances of getting your pro card.
yeah, I've noticed people tend to do that, or they'll at the state shows they'll enter like every class that they can. There'll be novice, true novice, the open. I mean, they'll enter everything just so they can hang some more medals on them or something. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's some of that for sure. So you go. How did like COVID and stuff affect your training? Like, did you have to adjust anything like with regard to that or no?
Oklahoma's been pretty open out of every other state that I've talked with.
Mm-hmm.
I think we fully shut down for maybe 2 weeks. However, there was still a few gyms out in smaller towns that were open.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, you're not going to drive 2 hours to go to a gym probably either. So we did a lot of moving around. And a lot of we kind of had to be resilient with it. A lot of us had equipment that we would just come together and get a quick workout in. Mm-hmm. Even if you had bands or just a few set of dumbbells, or you had to show up on a farm and use some implements or something. I mean, there was always weight, it's just we kind of had to get creative.
Right. Yeah, that's kind of like what I had to do for a while too. Like initially, especially before I got some hands on some like real legitimate weights. Because to be honest, when this whole thing started, I went and looked at like Facebook Marketplace and other stuff, and I mean some of these weights were ridiculously priced because people were just gouging everyone for like a 5-pound plate was like, I don't know, like $15. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, it's like I tell everybody, there's always some kind of weight somewhere, you're just going to have to figure out how to move it a little differently. So I bet there's a lot of new strong men and strong women out there through all this. So maybe that's a good thing.
Yeah. Did you notice like any kind of difference in your physique with it? You started like doing, things with improvising. Did anything change? Did you lose muscle?
I noticed, if anything, we all started to look a little better. I think a lot of us, particularly the ones that were real focused on bodybuilding, we were really bad about overtraining and over dieting because we're just constantly, even if you're only prepping for one show a year, I just think you tend to overtrain and over diet.
Yeah.
And so I noticed within the first few days when we all started like meeting up and just doing all these crazy circuit style workouts, at first we all started to look more rested. Like our bodies needed the rest, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But then, of course, after a while, you kind of had the reverse effect start happening. We needed to start eating more. So if you're going to do all these high rep type schemes and technically lighter weight type schemes, the need for carbohydrates actually increased. Which,
is it because you're like moving more because you're doing like circuit type of training?
I believe so. It's like your need's going to go up. You're doing huge. I mean, we were doing huge sets, like 100 rep sets of shoulders and
Yeah.
things like that. And so from there, we also I tended to adjust. And that's when I started looking for just heavy things to pick up. Because I was getting mentally exhausted doing
Hmm.
basically these warm up type workouts that you would do like backstage at a bodybuilding show. And plus, you just got to where you were burning so much food, that
Yeah.
it became easier. It's like, hey, let's just find some heavy stuff and lower the reps again.
Yeah, I think that's the part that some people kind of like underestimate is the mental part of it, of not being able to train the way the way you used to, because it's like you go from, going real heavy, as heavy as you want, you've got all the options you want, and then all of a sudden it's like you're limited to just a fraction of that weight, and eventually it's just kind of like it's mentally, exhausting.
It can be, especially if you've never been put in a situation like that before.
Hmm.
I think it's kind of helped some of us with having like backgrounds in military training. Like a lot of times you get deployed to places that may not have a gym,
Right.
or if you're responding to like a natural disaster or something and you're in a town with no power, I mean, the gyms aren't open and we
Right.
still have to stay in shape. So I kind of fell back on a lot of that, just that
Hmm.
kind of mindset. Like, what would I do, and improvise that way.
Hmm.
Granted, it still wasn't fun, but you
Right.
know,
You made it work. Yeah. How is your like eating when you prep for like a figure competition? Do you just do like you do like higher carbs, lower carbs? Are you the person that like gains weight easy, or you stay lean most of the time?
I tell everybody that every prep has been different. I mean, I've gotten ready for 4 shows now. I was on the way to getting ready for 5. And
Hmm.
every time the approaches ended up having to be different. I believe, I mean, I've done high carbs, I've done high fats, low carbs. I've done low carbs and low fats. I don't know how that one worked, but it did. So basically, I think that your body tends to, once it's been tricked once, it's really resilient and it's not going to want to be tricked again. Because basically, when you're getting ready for a bodybuilding show, you're basically fighting science the whole time. Like you're trying to hold on to muscle, but burn all your fat. Your body,
Yeah.
like, ultimately does not want to do that. So my very first show diet is not going to work the second or third time I try to do it.
Did you do your own prep, or somebody helped you with it?
No, I always have a coach. I always have to have someone keep an eye on me. Like I can help other people prep, but I believe especially as you get into the last few weeks, say the last 6 weeks into a show, like I believe your instincts, like because you're not starving, but you are putting yourself in a pretty depleted state. And I
Mhm.
just believe your judgment towards what you truly look like, it starts to waver. Like you're always going to think you need more food, like no matter
Yeah.
what. So I'd rather have a second set of eyes kind of watch me go into those last few weeks and make those like fine tuned adjustments. And I've noticed that's worked a lot better.
Are you saying you always feel like you need more food? You feel, or you see yourself, you look like you're depleted? Is that why you like feel that way?
One of the best advice I ever got from a coach was if you look good during those last few weeks, you're not prepping hard enough. You're not dieting hard enough. What tends to happen as you deplete is your body, especially when you look at your body, it just looks flat.
Hmm.
Just man, you feel like it's harder to get a pump. Like you have to increase your salts just to even get a pump in a gym. Because I mean, you're just depleting all the glycogen out of your muscles. So when you look at yourself, especially, you think, oh, I just need food. I look like crap. My muscles are tiny. It's just you keep saying that over and over. But in reality, they'll fill back out. When you load back in going to a show, that's the part of that magic last week or however you approach it. That's all different.
Hmm.
That's when you fill back out. So for you to be the judge of how you look is kind of hard because you are physically hungry constantly and your muscles tend to have a flat appearance the more you deplete.
Gotcha. So it's like it tricks you into thinking you don't have enough muscle, like essentially.
Yeah, you just feel really puny, you feel really tiny, and
Hmm.
that's honestly your body's survival instinct because it wants you to put fat on by default. Like it wants you to be in a surplus. So it's going to do everything to play tricks on you, even psychologically,
Hmm.
to make you go back to homeostasis, go back to your normal, full weight.
So what do you like, if you don't mind me asking, what do you weigh in like as opposed to off season and on stage?
I think the biggest I've ever got, like my lifetime record, I got up to, uh, this past off season, I got to 180 pounds. And like, I'm only like 5'4.5". So that's pretty stout. Yeah, I was like a little dude. Is what I kept telling people. And, that was really uncomfortable. Like
Uh-huh.
I was having trouble. Like I was still like climbing and running and stuff, but
Mhm.
it took effort. Like I had to constantly like, come on, let's go.
Was it
So I
intentional?
yeah, I mean, I was trying to,
Mhm.
especially with thinking about moving up into physique. I mean, I was really pushing the food.
Mhm.
I was really pushing the weight, because if you're in between, you got to catch up to the next bigger step. So
Right, right. And then what about like on stage when you step on stage? Like what are you weighing in at, generally speaking?
to be honest, okay, so the day of the show, I don't ever weigh in. There's ain't ever time for it. But I
Mhm.
know like the night before when we've started to refill, like and eat carbohydrates and all that, I typically range. I think this last show I was 150 when I
Okay.
stepped on stage.
Yeah.
Each year it's been 10 pounds heavier though. I've noticed that.
So you've gained like 10 pounds every year of muscle.
And yes, and since then I've learned that's pretty cool. That's a pretty cool thing to accomplish in bodybuilding is to gain 10 lean pounds every year. So
Yeah, that's I mean that's huge. 10 pounds of muscle every year. That's a lot, especially when you're talking about for a girl. That's I mean, that's not easy to do by any means. So, I was thinking of something, but I can't remember now what I was going to say. Interesting. Okay, so we were talking. Oh, this is what I was going to mention to you. We were talking about diet, and there's like a huge kind of debate going back and forth. This has been going on for a long time, but it's kind of resurfaced online, where people are like calories versus macros. Like, what's more important? Like in your mind, like what do you think? Uh, is it really about the how many calories you take in to get lean or in shape? You should say I should say, or is it just the way you fluctuate the macros that matters the most?
I got something for them. This will help simplify it for everybody right here. It's basically how it translates in your mind. Okay, so yes, we all have to track an overall calorie expenditure every day. We know this. This is true.
Mhm.
It breaks down when you talk about body composition, as in, I want to be muscly and lean looking. That's when you start breaking down into macros. And that's just the easiest way to track it for most people, unless they want to sit there with a calculator all day, tracking calorie to calorie to calorie.
Mhm.
Like, so we all know that 1,000 calories of donuts is not going to make your body look the same as 1,000 calories of balanced macros,
Right.
preferably high protein.
Right.
So I think people are just kind of arguing about it unnecessarily because
Mhm.
I think they just translated there. It's like Samsung versus iPhone, you know.
Yeah, yeah. I think there's also part of the issue is there's a lot of people putting out like false information, online where people are just doing crazy and ridiculous like diets and saying that they've lost weight doing it. Like they'll be like, "Oh, I ate only potatoes and I lost like 20 pounds," which might
Like
be the case, but
potatoes.
huh? So
Of
again.
all, of all things, why would you pick potatoes,
Yeah, I
right?
don't know. I mean, there's anything. I mean, I bet you if you Google it or put it in YouTube, you'll find all kinds of stuff like where people just only eat a certain thing, a certain like one thing, and they like will say, "Oh, I lost so and so, so much weight or whatever doing this," and it's like it becomes this like sensational fad diet, and I think that kind of contributes to like the how can I put this like information that people are putting out there, because for somebody who's not like you, who's not like an avid trainer, who's just getting into it, it's hard to know like what you should do, that or who to listen to, that's how they do their research. They go on YouTube. So it's a tough situation to be in,
It's ridiculous.
Yeah. I remember when I was like first getting into it, I was searching everything I could find. And a lot of stuff, like looking back, was nonsense, and it's like the more basic stuff is what's real, like what's real, what really works. So did you like experience that when you first started like training? Did you like, how did you like get your information?
I know this is wild, but back in the day, they had these things called magazines.
Yeah, they don't
You know,
have
you
those anymore. Yeah, they don't have those anymore.
I wish they still had it, but even they had some kind of conflicting information. You know, they had
Hmm.
all these fitness models and male and female, and you would see their diets. And I look back on them now, I'm like, there's no way.
Hmm.
But the trick is that I've learned is no one is going to give away all the secrets. I mean, you really get what you pay for, and
Right.
the only way I found that out and you found that out is just through trial and error.
Yeah.
But you're right. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
Yeah.
So if people are really truly lost and they want a good place to start, I mean, I would just keep it as local as you can in real life. Like if you don't want to pay for a coach, I understand that. But going to Google right now, especially, you're just looking at ads. I
Yeah.
mean, it's whoever pays the most for an ad is what you're going to see.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's also what people don't figure out. Like, they don't understand that a lot of the times what they're looking at is like who's ever sponsoring that person or that, whatever. It's like that's the information that you're getting is whoever's putting the money up for it. You're not actually getting real like researched advice. I was going to ask you this about the figure and physique divisions, and in particular the physique and the bodybuilding divisions. Really, do you think that? So one of the topics that was coming up was that they should combine those divisions together because some of the girls are getting like borderline bodybuilding type. Like, what do you think? Do you think they should keep them separated, or you think they should just go ahead and combine it?
Man, they're all getting bigger.
Mhm.
Like I kind of laughed this year because I was able to sit back a little bit. I remember, like, for example, in my division, they kept saying I needed to move up. I was getting too big and too lean, too harsh looking.
Mm.
And I look
Too
at the
harsh. That's funny.
whatever.
Okay.
They don't help them, probably covered in tattoos either. But
Hmm.
um, but I looked at the division this year, and the look that I saw was bigger, leaner, like shredded, and that's just in the figures. So you can imagine as you go up into physique and bodybuilding, all these classes. I mean, even these wellness girls, man. I mean,
Hmm.
you've seen them, it's humongous, and I'm in a
Yeah.
good way. But
Right.
they're very big, very lean. Um, if you were to combine, and I think they've done that back and forth, where they've tried to combine physique and bodybuilding, and they've went back and they've even gotten rid of bodybuilding, female bodybuilding, and they've brought it back so that the physique girls knew when to stop, where to
Hmm.
stop, and maintain that line and that symmetry of a physique division. So I believe if you go and just combine them again, you're kind of taking away. Like, why did you go add wellness and then now you're talking about taking away physique?
Yeah.
That's just silly to me.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think they should combine them at all. I mean, I'm not a fan of female bodybuilding. I think that's just not something that's needed with women. However, I do understand that there's a place for it, and there's a bunch of people that like it. So that's just my own personal opinion. But as far as like physique, you know you have like Shanique Grant, who's the Olympia champ, and then uh, presumably no one's going to beat her this year either, or for many more years to come. I don't see it. So her look is I would think the ideal look. Like, I don't know, like, what do you think? Is she carrying the physique look that like pretty much everybody should strive for? I mean, obviously the judges think so, but like, what about you?
Exactly. She's got that long symmetry. It's a completely different body type than somebody that's like female bodybuilder. For example, the one I saw that won a few years back at a national level in female bodybuilding, she's probably 5 foot tall.
Hmm.
Shanique is pretty tall. I can't remember
Yeah.
exactly how tall she is, but she's a taller woman. So that just shows you right there, they're seeing pictures on a stage, but they don't understand the differences in body types.
Hmm.
Someone that's typically good at women's bodybuilding is usually not very tall.
Right.
So that's a completely different bone structure and muscle setup than somebody that's physique that tends to be more of a sleek look.
Right.
They are bigger, but they are not, stacked up like a women's bodybuilder.
Right. And I mean, I guess essentially it's like it's exactly what it should be, where it should be bigger than figure and smaller than bodybuilding, in that in between stage. It gets hard because what happens is that people just want to get bigger. Like, I mean, because it's hard to tell somebody to train to stay the same, like people always want to like grow and get bigger. You can see that in the men's divisions. They're getting, much bigger. It's getting harder to control that. How do you think, like, how do you control that? Like, how can you, as a judge or as the organization, like, really control the separation between these divisions?
You basically have to be uniform in your judging. I mean, that is what it is. Start if you have different standards in each state or each national show comparatively, that's how these things start getting blurry. The lines start getting mixed because a girl could do really good at physique at one show, go up to nationals, say, and they may not like her look at all. So you've got to have like a uniform judging standard and actually uphold each of these divisions,
Mm-hmm.
or they're going to start blending and merging, and on the athlete, if they don't want to move up, then they're going to have to starve down. And that's what it is. It's, yeah, we all like growing, but we also all hate suffering, and everybody hates having to burn muscle off. Cause I mean,
Right.
it's inevitable. You're going to gain, maybe not 10 pounds a year, but you're going to gain muscle every time you lean down if you're doing it right.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where you got to make a choice and make your mind up. Like, what division do I want to be in?
Right. Right.
If I stay where I'm at, I'm going to have to starve and atrophy some areas, or if I'm going to bump up, I'm going to have to grow all over. That's part of the art.
Yeah, it's interesting what you mentioned about the shows keeping them regulated even at like the lower levels, like the amateurs and nationals and all that. I was thinking in my mind like only of the pros, like keeping them separated by the judging on the pros. But you're right. If you give a girl a pass on the amateur level, and you give her a pass on the national level or whatever, and then she goes pro, and then she's in the same division. She did great in nationals, but now she's like doing terrible and is not really qualified for that division. It kind of it, it's not, it has to be coordinated, like through, from the beginning to the end, like it's hard to put that to an athlete. So.
Well, and a lot of that problem also boils down to the athlete again. If you get your pro card, it's tradition to take a year and grow into a pro show.
Mhm.
But some people, and I don't blame them, they're ready to go knock out that show. They're still lean from winning. They got their head blown up. I'm ready to go do my first pro show. So they schedule one as fast as possible, and try to go
Mhm.
hit it. And they may not even make, first call outs. And they're upset. Well, you did look good at nationals. You did win a pro card, but are you ready for a pro show against these other people that's been competing in pro shows for years? Some
Right.
people are, some people ain't ready yet. So that's where it helps to have a coach or somebody to kind of consult with and be like, should I go into off season or should I push forward? Do you think I'm ready, or ready in 6 months, or will I be ready in a year? So you kind of got to be honest with yourself or have someone that's going to be honest with you. And maybe you have to take a year off or whatever, maybe grow into, a pro show.
Mhm. Yeah, it takes some self-reflection for sure. Like you said, maybe getting a right coach, a right pair of eyes to look at you and give you the honest truth. Um, so they moved. I don't know if you heard. They moved the Olympia from with Las Vegas to what was it?
Orlando.
Orlando. Orlando. You're right. Yeah. And so, what do you think about that? What did you think about when you heard it?
The first thing I thought is I felt really bad. I felt really bad for people that like couldn't get their flights refunded. Like that's the first thing I thought for some reason. Um,
Yeah.
for some
Big
people that
hit.
doesn't matter, but for a lot of people that does, and that might change their whole plans. They may not even go watch, or
Hmm. Yeah. I'm not even sure. Are they gonna? Are so? I mean, Florida, they're having they're able to like have, I guess, some audience. Every state is different. I know the MMA has been kind of competing in Florida here and there as well. Um, Now the UFC has their own like their own. stadium in Las Vegas, I believe, so the Apex Center. So they don't have to do that anymore. So Florida seems to be like a little bit more liberal with like the audiences and so forth. So that's probably why they moved it to Orlando. I'm curious, like you said, like who, because it's close, right? It's like less than a month away. So people that have already like set up all their plans and everything like that, now they have to you know kind of repivot and then go to this other area. Who knows if they're if these down payments and whatnot, and flights and everything was refunded, like you said, maybe not. Some people can't afford that. It does kind of change things for a lot of people. But then I guess they did it because they felt like maybe it would be shut down. Las Vegas would be shut down, and that's what do you think?
That's exactly, to answer your question earlier, why I didn't want to mess with prepping uh, for a show, because I can tell you from firsthand experience, especially within the last few weeks, if something crazy like that happens and you have to make all these last minute changes, like you are not even capable of digesting that.
Hmm.
Like you are so all about your training and all about your diet and just walk around in this fuzzy state half the time, and to have to go through now reconfiguring how you're going to get there, where you're going to stay, are you going to be able to find a hotel near the venue, like to deal with that. Many competitors do that months in advance so they don't have to worry about it at the end.
Right.
And now with this, they're having to worry about it. And then from what I've heard, I know they moved the Olympia, the bodybuilding part, but they've left the rest of the expo in Las Vegas.
Really?
So
I didn't know
I don't
that.
know. I don't know if that's going to be true or it's going to stay true or any of that. But I think that it's another one of those cases where can't no one make their mind up. And the
Yeah.
only one that's really getting affected here, unfortunately, now is going to be the athletes because they're having to deal with it.
Yeah. That's tough. And like you said, it's interesting you mentioned that. I was looking at I know Missy Trescott pretty well, and we did a show last year together and kind of kept up. And I was looking at her page, and she's really lean. Like I was just surprised, not surprised. Like I mean, she does get in great shape, but just how lean a person can get getting ready for a show. How fast and um, and I'm like, in her state to have to. Now, I'm sure her husband, she's married, so he probably takes care of a lot of that too. But like, imagine the stress that you have to go through in that kind of lean state as you're like trying to eat, you're eating like almost no food at this point, and the stress. I wonder what that does to your body. Like I wonder how that affects the way you look. Even if you make it down there, like is that going to cause hormones and different things to be released from the stress to cause you to hold water and this and that. I don't know. It's a tough thing to try to go through. Like, you think people's
Cortisol.
bodies will change? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Hey, my bad. The phone
No,
keeps breaking up, but yeah, definitely cortisol is detrimental to that look of that physique. Now it just depends on how much she lets that affect her or not. She said she's got a husband, maybe he'll help be able to keep her calm. But if not, like if she consumes herself with panic, if she gets into panic mode, it could be bad. It could be bad for anybody if they let it get to them. So they're gonna have to readjust their whole mindset.
yeah,
Hopefully they got good coaches, and that's another good part about having a good coach is they'll be able to keep you calm. But it could affect it.
yeah, yeah. So I saw on your page, you said that you're a top three national figure. Is it so? The next goal is like to get the pro card, right? So at this point, like, are you?
Goals to win it.
Yeah, right, right, of course. But so that is presumably coming up next year. Like that's what you're shooting for.
Yeah, and the best part about even just doing powerlifting is we stay pretty lean, and so
Mhm.
I can always stay within pretty decent ballpark of getting ready for a show. And a lot of my training going into a show falls in line with powerlifting, anyways.
Mhm.
So I didn't really have to change much, to get to decide not to do a show and just go into this. I'm really not doing much different. I just don't have
Gotcha.
to deplete as much at the end. So to be ready for next year, that's what I plan on, you know. But
Hmm.
like you seen and I saw, can't no make their mind up.
Right.
It's too stressful.
Yeah, and I mean, who knows what's, what's gonna happen. I don't want to get into it too much, but we have this vaccine possibly coming out. Who knows if it's gonna work, if the cases are gonna go down, if they're not gonna go down. I mean, nobody really knows right now. Only thing we can look at is the rising right now. So, we'll see what happens in the future. So,
Man, I just tell everybody train to be healthy right now. Like
mhm.
depletion is not the place to be in. Like I've known several people to successfully hit a show this year, and like all the power to them for doing that, you know. But that's also made a lot of people sick because you're
Mhm.
compromising your immune system. No matter what, no matter how good you feel, it's hard on you. So that's your choice to make, you know. But
Yeah,
I just, man, you just train to whatever you do to train to be healthy right now. That should be the priority, and just
yeah.
find a sport that falls in the best with that.
Sure. Yeah, it's well, so you've been hitting like the right points throughout this show because just yesterday I wasn't even going to mention it because I completely forgot about it, but just yesterday I talked to a female physique pro, and I'm not going to mention her name because I don't know if she wants this out there, but she competed in the Arnold. She did really well, so she was prepping. And I messaged her yesterday. I was like, "Hey, I was thinking about having you on, about the Olympia and everything." And she's like, "Just to let you know, and she was, I mean, she was getting really depleted, really lean. She's like, I caught the virus and it was really bad. And so it's going to be next year for me. Like I'm recovering." And I was talking to my wife and I was like, that's the problem with sports like this, wherever you're dealing with depletion, and MMA falls into that too. Like where you're
Right.
depleting, cutting weight, it's like it compromises your immune system, and then you're so much more susceptible to catching, in general anything. But now with this COVID thing going around, that this is the scare. So yeah, it's not something that should be taken lightly, for sure.
Yeah. So it's the best way I've been able to say it is you definitely don't want to be fat right now. That's not the solution. Um, but depletion's not the state to be in. You know, we
Right,
know that,
right.
and you just kind of got to be ready for whatever. You know, that's the best thing I can tell everybody, and that's what I've been trying to do basically my whole life is just
Hmm.
be ready for whatever.
Yeah.
And now we can see how important that is. You know, with everything that's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, hey, I appreciate your time. I know you've got stuff going on, getting people, taking care of for job placements and everything. There you go. So, but before I let you go, I just want one more thing. You did mention that you help people prep, train, whatever. So what would be the best way for somebody to contact you? I will tag everything underneath, but I just want you to verbally kind of tell people what would be the best way to reach out to you if they wanted your help for anything.
Best way to get a hold of me is the most positive social media that I can really find dealing with right now would be on Instagram at Muddy
Hmm.
B. You know, you look below to find that.
Hmm.
Everything else, the inboxes stay full on everything else. So if
Gotcha.
you want to reach out for nutritional advice, supplemental advice, you know, or be directed where to go anytime, you can find me on there.
Awesome. All right. Well, hey, thanks. I greatly appreciate it, and I'll let you get back to what you were doing. Take care.
All right. Safe out there.
All right. Bye.